Have you ever seen someone who's just absolutely brilliant, a total expert, but then they make a call that completely misses the mark? It's wild, right? It happens all the time. See, smart people don't usually fail because they're not smart. They fail because their thinking gets kind of collapsed and jumbled up. So let's get right into it, because today we're going to unpack a really powerful tool to stop that from happening. It's called the DRDJDF framework. So first up, let's talk about a classic failure. I like to call this person the operator. This is the person who is all about action, right? Just getting things done. They are amazing tactically. They win every single battle, but they get so bogged down in the how that they completely lose sight of the why. And that's dangerous because you risk corrupting the entire mission when your actions aren't guided by a really clear core principle. And then you've got the total opposite problem. This is the visionary, or maybe the philosopher. This person, they have these huge, world-changing ideas. They can paint you a picture of a perfect system, this ideal world. But the ideas just kind of float away. They never actually land because they completely ignore all the real-world rules, the limits, the constraints. It's a beautiful vision with absolutely no path to becoming real. Okay, and the third failure archetype? Let's call this one the bureaucrats. This person knows the rulebook inside and out. They follow every single procedure, dot every I, and cross every T. They achieve perfect compliance, but they miss the entire point. They get the process exactly right, but there's no meaningful results in the real world. It's all form, zero function. So here's the big takeaway. All three of these failures happen for the same reason. We collapse the different layers of our thinking. We mix up what we want with what's allowed and what's actually possible. The DRDJDF framework, well, that's the fix. It's a tool for what the source material calls ordered cognition. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means we're going to intentionally separate our thinking into 3 steps. And, this is key, do them in order. We're going to look at the principle first, then the rules, and only then the practice. This discipline is what helps us create outcomes that are clear, that are grounded, and that actually work. The easiest way to think about this is like a pipeline. We feed a high-level idea into the first layer, DR. Then we check it against the rules in the second layer, DJ. And finally, we figure out how to make it all happen in the real world in the third layer, DF. It's this beautiful, clear path from a big vision all the way down to concrete action. Right, let's really dig into this now and break down each layer. We're going to start at the very beginning with what is arguably the most important step of all, defining the blueprint. So the DR layer is all about getting crystal clear on what we're trying to do. It takes some raw wish, a vague need or a big ideal, and it translates it into a solid plan that everyone can look at and understand. They call it the blueprint layer for a reason. You wouldn't build a house without a blueprint, would you? This is where we create that shared vision. This is the one question that this first layer is obsessed with. Before we even think about rules or budgets or anything else, we have to stop and ask, what are we really trying to accomplish here? What does the customer want? What does the stakeholder want? Heck, what do we really want? The only goal here is pure, simple clarity. And this right here shows you exactly what that looks like in practice. It's about really listening to a vague request and figuring out the root need underneath what's being said on the surface. And then, the most critical part, it ends by checking for understanding, literally asking, okay, is this what you mean? This step makes sure everyone is on the exact same page before you do anything else. Okay, so we've got our clear blueprint from the DR layer, awesome. Now we move on to DJ. This is the legitimacy layer. Think of it like a filter or maybe a gatekeeper. It takes our perfect, beautiful plan and it runs it against all the rules, all the standards, all the constraints that exist out there in the real world. The key word here is permitted. DJ is not asking if the idea is a good idea. It doesn't care if it's noble. It's simply asking, is this formally allowed? Now that could mean legal rules, company policy, scientific laws, whatever. It's a completely non-emotional check of what the system will actually let you do. So here you can see the tasks. It's about finding the rules, checking for conflicts, identifying all the things you depend on. This layer really forces you to separate what's a must-have from what's a nice-to-have. Basically, it takes that big blueprint and gives you back a map of what's actually possible within the established system. And that, of course, brings us to our final and maybe most critical step, DF, the realization layer. So at this point, we have a clear blueprint and we know it's passed the legitimacy check. Great. But now we have to bring it down to earth.
into the messy reality of execution, limited resources, and, people.
This is where the rubber really meets the road. I mean, a plan can be perfectly clear, totally legal, and still be completely impossible to pull off. DF forces us to ask the hard questions. Can we actually afford this? Do we have the time to do it? Do we have the right people? Can this thing actually be made to work?
And you can see that gritty focus right here in these tasks. It's all about getting traction and being competent, choosing a strategy that's workable, not just ideal, optimizing for the fact that we never have enough time or money, and most importantly, creating concrete, actionable next steps. This is the layer that turns a good idea into a successful project.
Okay, this slide right here, this is where it all clicks. It just lays everything out so perfectly. Look at the flow. DR starts with a fuzzy idea and gives you a sharp, shared blueprint. Boom. Then DJ takes that blueprint and tells you what's actually allowed, what the rules will let you do. And finally, DF takes that and turns it into a real plan, something you can actually go out and do. But here's the kicker. Look at the failure modes. This shows you exactly what goes wrong when you try to skip a step. It's so clear.
So let's wrap this all up by talking about the real power of this framework. Because it's not just some checklist, right? It's a discipline. And what does practicing this discipline actually protect us from?
When you get right down to it, the framework is a defense against these three huge failures. DR fights off confusion by forcing us to create an intelligible, understandable blueprint. DJ fights against arbitrary action by making us check our plan against real-world rules. And DF fights against impotence by making sure our plan is tractable, that it can actually be done.
And this quote from the source material, man, it just says it all perfectly. It's the entire pipeline, the whole thing, in just one sentence. You start with a desire, you shape it into a blueprint, you check it against the rules, and then you figure out how to build it in reality. That right there is how you get ordered, disciplined, and seriously effective thinking. So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. As you go about your week, your work, your projects, just ask yourself this one question. Where is my thinking currently collapsed? Am I just acting without a principle? Am I dreaming without constraints? Or am I just following rules without getting any real traction? Using this framework might just help you find the answer.